Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. Oh, what a week. I skipped last week of recording an episode for you guys because I had gone to the Wild Rose Festival the weekend before, and it was the most amazing but yet exhausting experience ever. I've been to the Wild Rose Festival this will be my second year, but last year I went just as a presenter and to provide womb blessing attunements there. And so I didn't partake in any of the events or the talks because I was there the whole time working, and it was a beautiful experience. I met so many amazing women. But this year there was something within me that just really called that this year I needed to go for me. And so I was still a presenter. I led a aligned womb yoga class on the Sunday morning. But for the rest of the weekend, I really did partake in the events and just really embraced myself in the sisterhood there and in what Lauren with Wild Rose Apothecary has really created with this Wild Rose Festival. And it was the most magical experience ever. And so I really recommend anyone who's listening to this to look it up for next year and really try to come if it's something that it sounds interesting to you. But this year, I didn't really know why I felt the urge that I had to be there. I just knew I had to be there. And one thing that became really clear throughout the weekend of being there was a few things. One was community and the power of being in community with women. I had gone with a friend and we had this beautiful experience and we both reflected on it on the last day of the fact that we came together, but yet we only attended one of the same talks together. They had 3 different stages going at all times, and throughout the whole weekend, her and I went to different things and we barely saw each other even though we had gone together. And in fact, I decided that I really needed to stay on site camping. I really needed to be there with the earth and with the community. And I just felt very, very deeply that I needed to be there. And she felt the opposite. She was like, no, I need to be there, but I need to be able to leave and be by myself. And we both allowed space for this. And so on the last day, we were talking about the fact that we came together, but we really didn't spend any time together, and how beautiful it was that we both were just so accepting of this because we both went for whatever healing we needed in the journey. So community was one big, huge part for me in the Wild Rose Festival. But the other thing that I really walked away with, and I don't know if it was just this really powerful message for this year, that it seemed like all of the guest speakers were really aligning with this theme, or maybe if it's just the community of women coming together that it just naturally happens. But what I really walked away with was connection to my feminine energy, connection to the divine feminine. And this is work that I've been doing for a while. Some of you might not know that last year I was in a full year-long priestess training, which was amazing. And this training really focused on us looking at the 13 different moons and the 13 different archetypes that really support the divine feminine, and how we as women are the embodiment of these 13 different archetypes. And it was the most beautiful training ever that I really can't even put words to. Often people are like, well, what did you learn? And it was like, it wasn't something that I learned. It was really, truly this deep embodiment practice of me coming home to myself, me coming home to a part of me that I wasn't even aware was there and that had a lot of cobwebs in that had to come out. There was archetypes that we visited that, brought out pure joy. And I felt a feeling that I wasn't expecting to feel. And then there were months or cycles with archetypes that on a whim, without even me feeling the urge, I would break down in tears crying. And it was just this beautiful weaving of getting to know myself and to starting to see some of ancestral patterns or deep patterns within myself that maybe I have learned in this life with, family dynamics and so forth, that I had to really reflect on of what was serving me and what was it I really wanted to call into the next level of my life. What was I really wanting to embody? And it was a really powerful training that was the first time that it really kind of woke's not really a word, that woke me up to, feminine energy and what it meant to really embrace feminine energy. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because this is what the Wild Rose also it brought me back into that relationship with my priestess training. And the divine feminine, you can call it divine feminine or you can call it feminine energy. It really doesn't matter. They're, in my mind, interchangeable when I use them. Feminine energy, I think a lot of us aren't very clear on what that really means. We think feminine energy means female, and it really doesn't. We have both feminine and masculine energies in us. And our masculine energy is the energy of drive, of analytics, of logics, of knowledge, of streamline, linear thinking. And then we have our feminine energy. And the feminine energy is more intuitive. It's more slow. It's more yin-like. It's healing. It's trust. It's wisdom, which is very different than knowledge. It is this deep ability to be soft, but yet sturdy. And one thing that was a really big theme at the Wild Rose Festival, and one thing that has really come into my awareness over the past few years, was how much feminine energy has been mocked, has been, I don't want to say destroyed, but has been silenced and has been semi-erased from our lives. It's still there. It's always there. But our relationship to it has really been injured over the several hundreds of years, a few centuries now, and mainly when the patriarchal system came into play. And the patriarchal system, remember, it's not male bashing or it's not male itself. The patriarchal system is one that really supports and, in fact, only really recognizes the idea or the essence behind masculine energy. It really likes structures and it really likes power dynamics, and it really values there being a hierarchy in a system, and that everyone follows said system. And it doesn't really create a lot of space for feminine energy or for womb wisdom or women wisdom. And this is part of what happened, was this erasing. I had a hard time believing that the witch burning years happened a few years ago. I was like, nah, it's possible. That could have never happened. And it actually blew my mind that it was really a thing. And I don't even know where I came to believe that it wasn't a thing. I think that you just think that that really wouldn't happen, or that that's a myth, or it's a folktale. But it really did happen. And that was the first step in erasing feminine energy, was that it made women fearful of owning their gifts, of being dynamically different than masculine energy. And when we seen this shift happen, there were so many layers that happened. One, we let go of this idea that we as human beings have the ability to heal on our own. We really did begin to rely on medicine and systems and external people to heal us. So it really started to create this sense of disempowerment and disconnection from the body. And we really started to believe that we were not fixable without the help or aid of somebody else. And I think this is one of the big keys for myself that I've really struggled with over the year as a Reiki practitioner and as a womb healer and taking all these trainings, is that I've seen and felt the beauty and the magic and the healing abilities of the body. But then a part of me is like, there's no research for me to really sell this, and it makes me uncomfortable. And it's because I was always trained, I think, to believe that medicine was like the be all end all, the law, right? I was actually having this discussion with my girlfriend at the Wild Rose Festival about, I don't know where it came into my awareness, but for some reason, doctors and police were the two authority figures that you never questioned. And that was not something that was verbally taught to me. This was something that I just felt and knew, and I don't know why. And it's really interesting that when I look at that, once again, it's, me removing myself from this idea that I have the ability to heal, that I have my own inner wisdom, my own intuition to be able to trust. Which leads into the second thing, is that, the erasing of the divine feminine, or the muting of it, really was about us no longer trusting intuition. And in fact, a lot of us are uncomfortable with the word intuition. We right away think that that is like fortune tellers or psychics or mediums, but we all have intuition. It's our gut instinct, right? And it's really funny that when you say gut instinct, a lot of us can resonate and say, oh yeah, I've had gut instincts. I know what that means. But a gut instinct is our intuition. But yet we feel so uncomfortable saying, my intuition says, right? For some reason, we just feel really uncomfortable with that terminology. And once again, that goes back to that ancestral pattern or that ancestral trauma that's being stored in our body that tells us that that's linked to the divine feminine and it's not safe. The other one that was really powerful. There was two others that were really powerful at the Wild Rose. One was that I went to this talk on igniting our sexuality. And I believe that was what it was called. It was around that topic. And it was funny because when I looked at the schedule, I was like, no, not going to that. I don't know, for some reason, I felt like I'd be uncomfortable there. It was something I did not want to talk about in public. And because I was putting the sexuality as in sex and not into the bigger context of like my sensuality, owning my sensuality. But anyway, something in my instincts, in my intuition told me, no, you know what? You need to go. Just put on your big girl panties and go to this talk because you're going to get something out of it. And I went, and it was by far my favorite talk. It was so powerful. And I really hope to bring this lady on for one of these podcast episodes because she was just the most inspirational and powerful speaker. She just blew my mind. But one thing that she talked about is this idea of loss of security in really owning our sensuality and really allowing ourselves to feel as sexual beings. And the reason why this was really powerful for me was she gave one example that really hit home. And one was, as a teen, we're not allowed to walk with flow. We have to walk very rigidly because if we sway our hips too much or if we look too sexual in our walk, then we're enticing men. We're inviting something to happen. And she said, that's BS. Like, we are just walking. And if they get tempted by it, that's their stuff. That's not ours, right? And it brought back this memory of when I was working in the corporate world. And I had completely forgot this story until she was talking about this, and it ignited the memory in me. I was working in this corporate world where we had a dress code that we had to wear dress clothes. And so I was wearing this black dress that went past my knees, and it was a halter top, but the front of it came up to my collarbones. So the only thing that was showing was my arms, my shoulder blades, and my calves. And I had worn this dress to funerals. I had worn it to weddings. Like, it was just a black, simple cotton dress. It was not fancy. There was no V-neck, like whatever. Anyways, a gentleman that worked at the office called my manager and told her that I was dressing too sexy. And so she actually came into my office to ask me to put a sweater on, because I was appearing to be too sexual for the men in the company. And I remember at the time I was young and I just felt such a wave of shame, like such intense shame. And it's funny because I don't think I've ever worn that black dress since. And to think about it, it's probably still in the back of my closet. And it wasn't until she talked about this that I was like, oh, you're right. Like that had a huge impact on me that I totally even suppressed the memory. But her whole message is that we have to quit giving the report card or allowing people to create report cards about our sexuality or our sensuality or how we appear. We have to reclaim part of our sensuality back on ourselves and saying that, no, as women, we are not temptress. As women, we are just women. We have hips, we have legs, we have breasts. Those are our things. And, like I lived in Africa for a while, and the women there, majority of them, if they had little babies, they went topless. You rarely seen, because I was in small villages, they didn't wear shirts or try to cover up their breasts. They were just always out available for breastfeeding. And I remember it made me feel uncomfortable when I was living there for a while. But when I think of that situation, men weren't gawking at them. Men weren't like cornering them. Men weren't trying to grab at them. That was just seen as part of the culture, right? And so it's really in the environments that we're living in. For me, being in Canada, in Western culture, it's really amazing how that's uncomfortable. Because even if you think of Europe, there's a lot of like topless beaches. It's not a thing like it is here. And yet we allow people to report on our bodies. We allow people to tell us what we are allowed and what we aren't allowed to do and how we have to appear outside. So anyways, her whole talk was around this idea of part of healing the divine feminine and part of healing and igniting our sexuality and our sensuality is reclaiming that report card and saying, no, this is my body to report on. The other really potent thing that was one of the talks that I had gone to, or it was a theme that came up in a lot of talks, was really the power of allowing ourselves to feel the feelings, feel whatever we want to feel. Whether it's anger, whether it's rage, whether it's dance, whether it's sensuality, whatever it is, allow ourselves to feel and to express and to have a safe zone to do that. And I'll be honest, it made me uncomfortable. I was in a few talks where it was like, okay, let's let go of these masks we've been wearing and let's let the rage out. Let's destroy them. Let's allow whatever has been cooped up to come out. It was really hard for me to be that expressive, which is why I had to sit back and reflect a bit afterwards, because none of it was good or bad. Like that's the biggest thing is like, I don't want people to think, oh my God, you had a horrible time. It was the most amazing and most supportive experience. Because even when I was in those environments where we're feeling the feelings and I couldn't allow myself to feel the feelings, or I was resisting feeling the feelings, the community of women that were in that space with me didn't tell me that I was doing it wrong. They didn't say do it differently. They, in fact, weren't even caring if I did anything. Like everyone was there for their own and everyone was held with however they wanted to appear. And it was the most beautiful thing. The whole weekend was so inspirational and so amazing and so healing. Oh my gosh, the amount of rest I got and the amount of time that I was just able to be without expectations, without roles or duties. It was so healing. And the women that I met there were so amazing. But when I came out of it, I came home Sunday night, I was exhausted for 3 days. And not exhausted like I didn't get enough sleep and I was up too late. It was exhausted as in my body was emotionally purging and reconfiguring and doing what it needed to do, which is why I didn't release an episode last week. Was when Wednesday came and I was going to actually share about my experience at the Wild Rose, I couldn't. I was like, no, you can do this. It's only 20 minutes that you have to talk for. And I was like, no, I actually can't show up. I actually cannot sit in front of a mic and be expressive and hold that space. Like, it was everything in my body said, no, just be in this for you. And so I listened to it. I let go of the expectation that I should release an episode. And instead, I just allowed myself the space that I needed, which goes into kind of how I want to wrap up this conversation. One, go to the Wild Rose next year. It was so amazing. But two, start to reflect about how you're honoring and allowing space for feminine energy to exist in your life. How are you allowing yourself to really honor this energy and this way of being that really has been kind of erased or suggested that it's unacceptable or unsafe in our communities? And so how can we do this? How can we choose to activate her? Well, we can choose to activate her by increasing our own self-love and appreciation. We can do this by deepening our connection to our body and to our sensuality. And remember, sensuality is not always sexuality. Sensuality is taste, it's touch, it's hearing, it's using our five senses to become embodied into the physical presence. Another way that we can activate this divine feminine energy in us is being in tune with our rhythms, being in tune with our cycle, which is what we talk about on this podcast all the time. Another way is to strengthen our inner guidance or intuition, and to really trust when we have these felt senses. We may not know if they're true or not, but can we just go with the hits of wisdom that come to us that we don't quite understand or know or can't really define if it will happen or not happen, but can we just trust in what we feel? Another way is to being open to just receiving, being open to being seen, being open to being vulnerable and visible, the imposter syndrome, like letting that all go, really allowing ourselves to feel that it is okay to be us. And one of the big ways that I would say is allowing ourselves to relax and to rest. Rest and reclaiming rest is one of the main gateways for us to get back into our body, back in touch with our intuition, and back into relationship with feminine energy, within the divine feminine that's in us. If you look at masculine versus feminine energy, masculine energy would be the sun. It'd be daytime. It's that energizing, it's that linear approach, it's the 24-hour clock, it's the very the intensity, the desire to achieve. And feminine energy is very much the yin. It's the relationship to the moon. It is what comes out of the darkness. It is birth and death. It's not the in-between. It is the knowing without knowing. And so how we can allow ourselves to be more still and more reflective and allow ourselves space to feel what is our truth is a way for us to deepen this connection. So I'm going to leave that with you today of how are you honoring the divine feminine in your life? And what are some simple ways that you can start being a little bit more cognizant or more aware and more inviting to allow more of your feminine energy to come through? I know that this is not comfortable work. Well, at least it's not for me. It's very uncomfortable work, which is funny because I do see myself as somebody who completely believes in energy healing and, all the things that I do is all around the feminine energy, but yet there is still a part of me that, really grew up in a very masculine household, and not masculine in a bad way, but masculine energy of that. There's a system we follow. We don't break the rules. We do what we're told. We go to school. We find the career. We allow someone else to pay us for the work that we do, and we be a good worker until we retire. And once we retire, then we have the freedom to rest. Like, that's kind of the cycle that I was taught. And I've broke all those norms, but yet, if I'm being completely honest, I am still very uncomfortable in outwardly living my truth to strangers in the outside world. I feel very comfortable of declaring that I'm an energetic worker, that I do womb healing to those that I feel safe with, and those that I feel when they ask me about it are curious and are safe to share more deeply with because they've inquired. But I don't go out and pronounce these things to the world and feel like I will be received well. I still have a lot of fear of being ostracized or being challenged or being rejected. And that is all of that witch burning ancestral trauma that I'm probably still carrying in my system. We'll talk more about ancestral trauma another day. This is something that I've been diving more deeper into lately. And if you're like, I can't wait for that, go grab the Patriarchy Stress Disorder book. It is an amazing book. It's really, really good. All right. So that's where I'm going to leave this for now, is my experience of the Wild Rose, and leaving you with, how are you really showing up in your feminine essence? And what is a small way that you can start to honor it and live more authentically, or live more in aware of what she is asking of you, and doing so in a way that makes you feel safe, so that you can start to invite more and more of it into your life. For way too long as women, we have been guided to hate our menstrual cycle and to curse our hormones. We have lost the art of seeing the inner power of being cyclical. So, if this podcast is inspiring you and waking up a new curiosity of how your cycle can be your superpower, I invite you to check out the She Sisterhood. This is a monthly membership that will align you to your unique rhythm through aligned womb yoga practices, cycle coaching on how to weave your cycle wisdom into everyday life, and to be part of a community of women that are awakening to their inner power. Remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living. And if you love this episode, don't forget to rate and review. I love seeing how this information is transforming your life.